Hey, all you minties. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today as I do an overview of the Pokémon Adventures Collector's Editions from Viz Comics. So please stay tuned. Alright, and welcome back everybody. Now before I get started, I did want to give a huge thank you to Viz for sending us copies of these books for review. These are the new Collector's Edition, and yes, these stories have been previously printed before. As a matter of fact, these stories have been previously printed in single issue format for those of us that have been collecting manga for many years. They would come out once a month, $2.99, and would just include one little chapter. And then they got their own little tankobon. The original single issues, by the way, read from traditional American comics left to right, whereas when they were printed in the smaller size, these books right here, they made them into the right to left format in the traditional Japanese style. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the size of these books, compare them to the size of other manga released by Viz, and then I also want to talk about where it's previously been collected. So these are the collector's edition. They're not hardcover, they are both softcover. There's 2 volumes out so far, but here it is compared to the size of a traditional tankobon. Maison Ikoku, I'm waiting for the collector's edition of this. So here it is. So it is the same size as the signature series Urusei Yatsura Lum, and just a tad shorter than the Viz Big Editions. So it kind of gives you an idea of how big this is. As I mentioned, they have been collected in single issue format, which many years ago, long gone, the individual tankobons, and then they started releasing these box sets. Now this box set takes us all the way to chapter 90, and both of these take us all the way to chapter 78. So I think it's the first 6 put together into oversized format books. Now, let's look at the first one. Okay, so all the color covers are in here, collected in here. Here's the contents of the book. So this takes us to adventure number 40. As I mentioned, the original covers here. And it's interesting because in Japan, so you have the character of Red, who's red in both America and in Japan. And then you have the character of Blue, who's known as Blue here in America and Green in Japan. And then Green in America is Blue in Japan. So I'm not sure why the changes, because, oh, that's right, because originally there were only 2 games in America, just Blue and Red, whereas in Japan there was Green Leaf. So this is what the paper quality looks like. This particular volume has 648 pages. And you'll see familiar characters here from the video game, from the anime. This is all written by Hidenori Kusaka. And then Mato is the illustrator for the first few volumes. All of this, both of these collector's editions are all drawn by Mato, who I really enjoy her artwork. It is ongoing. I didn't know that. So the way that I remember this is that my brother, Manuel, I don't know why he didn't make this video with my daughter. That would have been a good video, both of them, because they're both into it more than I ever was. He was huge into Pokemon. He was like the first kid in town that got the Pokemon trading cards. Loved the video game. Sent away his video game on an eBay bid so he could get that little Mew character. Right? Man, that's dedication, or cheating, I guess. I don't know. But he had to pay for it, send away his cartridge, they put Mew on it. Regardless, he's a huge Pokemon fan, and he would get this in monthly format, and I would make fun of him. But the secret of being an older brother, right, or an older sibling, rather, is that you're always supposed to make fun of your younger sibling, but then secretly enjoy the things that they do, or that they introduce you to. So as a fan of manga and anime, of course I was drawn to this wonderful artwork by Mato. Like, it's cute, but very charming, and it just draws you in. I don't know why. I wasn't the biggest fan of Pokemon, but granted, I have played the games now because of both of my daughters. Both of them are huge fans. My 8-year-old lives Pokemon, wants to get a pet goldfish so she can name it after a Pokemon. But yeah, since they both live it, as a parent now, I also have to enjoy these things. And I genuinely do. So going back to this brought back memories. So we both read this, my 8-year-old and I. So it is suitable for 8-year-olds. I will say, unlike the anime, there are deaths in here. Like, Pokemon do die here. Let's look in the back here. Nice shot of Pokemon Red, Green, and Blue. It's an awesome picture. And then, of course, the adventure map. And bring on Volume 2. Let's talk a little bit about that. By the way, here is the back and what the spines look like together. Because I know some of you all like for me to point out the spines. And then here are the backs of each books. Now, each book retails for $17.99. Now, as I was saying, Pokemon in the comic book, in the manga, do die. They don't fall or faint like in the video game or in the anime. Some of them die. So I will say that in case you want your younger reader at home to read these. My 8-year-old was completely cool with it. She was very emotionally touched, though, when something like that happened within these pages. I'm not going to spoil anything when I do these overviews. I never do. So just as a heads up as a parent, I know that bothers some parents. So one of the things I will say is that I love the paper quality that they are using for this. I really hope that this is the collector's edition of Masonic Hoku looks like this. It's this pretty thick white paper. It doesn't feel like the 3-in-1 papers that I know some people complain about, like when One Piece was doing it, had a very cheap paper. So it feels, you know, it's really nice. It's not as thick as some of the paper quality I've seen, so you can see a little bit of the artwork. Keep in mind, again, because I have this studio light over here, it's probably brighter than most people's lights at home. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So you can see a little bit of the artwork from the other page. Now, this particular volume has 616 pages. And I did want to talk about the paper quality. The other thing I will say is that it is ongoing. The series is still going on. I think we're well past volume 50, at least in Japan. I'm not sure here in America. They've done several box sets. So I don't know how much more will continue with the Pokemon Adventures in Collector's Edition. I think it's a very unique way because this, much like Marvel and DC, realizes that a lot of us that read this stuff, keep in mind this came out like 1998 here in America, so it's over 20 years ago, now have grown up, are making our own money, and are nostalgic for these things we grew up with. So that's why they're releasing these. I'm surprised they didn't go the hardcover route because I think, honestly, you know, just because I'm a guy that does Omnis and Absolutes and hardcovers, that I know how well they'll sell. Let's look in the back here for extras as I showcase this wonderful artwork by Mato. So there's new characters, little Easter eggs too for the people that watch the anime and the video game, play the video game. And then the notes back here as to who did the translation. Let's look at the build. So much like most manga, it is glued binding. You can see right there the curve. So there's, you know, very minimal gutter loss. But because it is soft cover, when the pages start weighing down on one side, the book won't stay open. So, I mean, it's what you kind of expect. I do like the fact that it's oversized artwork, so you can appreciate the artwork even more. And again, you only have to hold it down towards the beginning of the book, and of course, I don't want to spoil anything, but towards the end of the book. And before I end this video, they were also kind enough to send this Tokyo Day by Day little book. It's a little traveler's guide if you're ever going to Tokyo. My wife looked at this and we were like, oh man, we so could have used this when we went to Japan. But it tells you the dates up top and what the celebrations are, what times are best to go, what you need to wear. It's a really cool book in 365 days. So these are annual events that happen every year when in Tokyo. So, and that is that. And that was the content of the manga, the page count, and the build of the books. Please let me know in those comments down below if you're picking these up, if you have read these, if you remember reading these as a kid, or if you remember reading these as an adult, or if you had siblings that read them, if you remember them coming out in the single issue format. I would love to know all those comments down below. Again, I strongly suggest them because my kid, my 8-year-old daughter, loves Pokemon and loved these books. It's an original take on the franchise. It's different than the video game and it's different than the anime. It's one of those underrated manga that I remember reading, and now I'm glad that my daughters get to read them. And also, don't forget to check out Tokyo Day by Day. My wife and I were just talking about how much we could have used this book when we went to Japan. Again, please don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We can be found on Patreon and Redbubble. Those are great ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, please everybody stay healthy, stay safe out there, and much love to all of you.